All right, we're back with officially a name. This is the Athletic Lab channel, okay? Not just a podcast. Athletic Lab channel with IQ, so it makes us sound smarter at the end of athletic, okay? So we did decide on that. Introductions, I'm Alex.
Steve.
This is Steve. We're back at it. We got some stuff that we're going to talk today about just strength conditioning, just athletic performance and things like that. So first, just quick recap of the week. What happened this week, Steve?
Yeah, the only big thing that happened, our staff that we work with, all the different schools in the area, we had I don't know, I always refer to it as a State of the Union. It was like a quarterly meeting.
Yeah.
Where I gave a couple presentations, both of them on draft prep, NFL draft prep training for combine or pro day. Yeah, I guess the bigger one with the full strength staff.
Yeah.
Just going over like what that looked like. Me doing that for the first time on my own, getting guys ready in January and February for their college pro days, and literally as much of the details as I could with the whole staff. So I think it was fun. Man, I felt like I was talking so fast trying to get through everything.
Really?
Yes, and I was still up there forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool, and we'll get to that later.
Yeah. No, I thought it went well, man. You can tell. I think with you teaching those classes, that helps a lot with like how you speak. You know what I mean? Because I thought the opposite. I thought you were like slower than what I would have talked. You know what I mean?
Really?
Like it seemed like you were comfortable up there and had a good pace, and it was some really good stuff. You know what I mean? There was some really good
Appreciate
stuff. So yeah, we'll probably, bro. I think we could do honestly. I think we could do even like a whole like series on that shit, bro. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Maybe sometime in the future, but yeah, this week I'm trying to think. Nothing really happened too much. We're just getting ready for the end of the school year with the testing and everything. So we have 5 weeks of school left, I
That's
believe.
exciting.
Yeah, which is crazy. So it's gonna fly by. So just getting used to that. We're getting ready for our end of year testing and all that stuff. So just kind of winding the school year down.
Yeah. Are you guys taking a week off before summer stuff, or right into it?
We will. Well, the last week of school will be a week off, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So last week of school ends on a Thursday, I think, Thursday or Friday, and then Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that sounds
Memorial
right.
Day is on that Monday after we end, and then we start that Tuesday.
Okay.
So, well, you know how it is in the summer. It's only 7, 8 weeks.
It
You
goes
know,
by quick.
8 weeks max.
Yeah.
At least of training. So, yeah, we try not to waste any of those weeks. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, today we are going to talk about. Now, this is just basic general stuff, just kind of strength conditioning wise, but I think it's more and more common to hear people, athletes and coaches alike, talk about, at least I've heard it a decent amount, about the idea of like how strong is strong enough for athletics, right? I think you can, athletes will get to a point, especially at the higher level, like college and pros, where they're like, man, they can squat 500, 600 pounds and bench 400 pounds or whatever it is. And it's like, just the topic of how strong is strong enough to play your specific sport. Now, this is obviously a general discussion, right? We're not talking about one sport over the other. But just in general, what are your thoughts on just, can an athlete be too strong? And kind of how, and your thoughts, how strong is strong enough, I guess.
I don't know if I have a good answer for the how strong is strong enough.
Yeah.
Like, because it's strong in what? Oh, their squat is like the most common one, I think. Oh, I squat this much. It's like, well, how does that really transfer over to whatever sport you're playing? Football, basketball, tennis. So I don't know. I don't know if there is a good answer. I don't know. I like the question of, can athletes be too strong? I don't know if an athlete can be too strong, but it comes a certain point, kind of like you were alluding to with college and like certain football players being able to lift a lot of weight. It comes a certain point where your emphasis shouldn't necessarily be on getting stronger and hitting bigger squat numbers,
Yeah.
but more specific time domains to the
Sure.
sport. It needs to happen quick. So I don't know. I don't think I have a good answer. I think typically the younger you are, like middle school, but like high school, early college, you're probably, again, dependent on the sport, you're probably not strong enough.
Yeah.
Specifically for thinking football.
Sure.
Like, you should probably get stronger. You have to move another human, most likely, in football, rugby, things like that. You're probably not strong enough. But then certain training age, it's like, let's put more emphasis on being explosive with that strength.
Yeah. It's like this is a very common analogy, I guess, in strength conditioning, but like the bucket analogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have certain buckets that, every day that you train, you are filling up, or you're filling up different buckets,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like common buckets would be strength, speed, help me out, Steve. Strength, speed.
I'm thinking in like a continuum, so like speed, power, strength,
Yeah.
strength, endurance, like those
Yeah.
buckets.
Sure. So it's like every day, whatever you're doing, whatever you're training on, you at least you should have a idea of what bucket you're pouring into, right? So gets to a certain point, like you said, with certain athletes, where it's like, okay, that athlete's strength bucket is full, if you will, or close to full, and maybe their power bucket or their strength speed bucket, or however you want to look at it, might be a little bit too low, if that makes sense. So it's like, if someone can squat, 600 pounds, it's like, you're probably sufficient enough in that, again, lower body strength.
Yeah.
Depending on your sport, you probably have enough strength in that bucket. So maybe, like you said, maybe it's time to spend your efforts and your time somewhere else. So I think that's something that, like you said, especially at the younger age, I think strength training is probably can't do too much. I mean, you can, but it's going to be very rare to find a middle school or a high school athlete that is doing, I think, too much strength training,
Yeah.
unless they're training like a power lifter, right?
Yeah.
Where they're just always hitting, heavy ones, heavy threes, and don't really do anything for their just their quickness of movement, how fast they can apply that force,
Yeah.
So I don't. It's hard to give an answer to how strong is strong enough. Like common guidelines, right? Like this way, especially with younger athletes, this is because I'm sure you do too. We get questions a lot about like how much should I be able to squat or bench or clean at whatever age it is. It's like, well, it's hard to say, but like general rules of thumb, at least that I always give out, is like, okay, if you can deadlift twice your body weight, if you can squat 1.5 and bench 1 time your body weight, like that is a good just foundation, a good baseline to have. Like that, if you can't do that yet, like that should be, those are goals that you should look towards. Now, I'm not saying that is, once you get there, you're strong enough. There's definitely a higher ceiling to try to fill in there. But at least general rules of thumb, especially for, again, younger athletes, like middle school. We'll have middle schoolers come in and work out like you guys did. We'll have questions about that, like, I can't bench my body weight, and is that bad? And it's like, dude, like you're in 7th grade, no, that's just a goal for you to try to reach, So I don't know. That's usually I guess that's my closest answer to, but again, that's not strong enough. So I guess that's just a baseline of goals where I think bare minimum, that should be your first goal, I guess, when you start lifting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like, it's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
It's like, it's easy, especially at that age. It's easy to get stronger.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything crazy. It's just like progression week to week.
Yeah.
And I guess for some sports, those numbers might be strong enough. Like, if you're a female tennis player in high school, probably strong enough.
Yeah, I would
if you
think
can
so
hit
too.
those things.
Yeah.
Like the only implement you have to move is a very light tennis racket. I don't know the weight.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be baseball, you have to throw a light baseball, but you're trying to throw as hard as you can, or
Yeah.
a baseball bat as hard as you can. Tennis, it's not at the same speed, or you don't
Yeah.
need as much force. But something like football or wrestling, yeah, you're probably,
Yeah.
yeah, you're just baseline.
Well, and that goes back, like you said, depends on the sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, that would be a good example of a female tennis athlete that I'm trying to think. We probably have, she could probably do it. We probably got at least one female tennis athlete that could hit those numbers. And I would say she's definitely stronger than her, than other kids her age.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just interesting thinking about like how many of our tennis girls could do that. I know of at least one that I have faith could do it. But that's a good example of like, okay, if we have that athlete that can hit those numbers, especially for a sport like tennis, where like in terms of lateral like agility and speed and quickness, right? Like if you can hit those, maybe it's time to start working more on that bucket, if you will, the
Yeah.
lateral athleticism, just kind of encompass all of that. But like we have a kid that's going to Notre Dame next year, and this is a conversation that I've had with him a couple times, and because he's strong, like he's really strong, and he's had other coaches kind of tell him like, yeah, like you're probably in these lifts, like specifically his squat, I would say, he's probably strong enough because he's probably going to squat over 500 pounds.
What's he weigh-ish?
Like
200?
190, 195. And I don't know if they have a goal for him, but like he's solid size. He's 6 foot, so he's not super tall.
And when you say they, coaches here or coaches at Notre Dame?
Coaches at Notre Dame. Yeah, and I'm sure they do. I'm sure he's talked to him about it. But, he's like, yeah, I had a coach, tell me that my squat is probably strong enough, like, what do you think of that? And I was like, yeah, I mean, you probably are. You know what I mean? Like, and then we got into the topic of, I think Jalen Hurts, when it was like, when he got to Alabama, they were like, yeah, they didn't even let him squat. Because I think he was a power lifter in high school, I'm pretty sure. I think he competed in powerlifting.
I think you're right. I think you're right now that you say it.
And so he's squatting, 500 plus pounds as he comes in as a quarterback. So they were like, yeah, we don't need to heavy back squat this kid anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we should focus on other things, which is a good example of kind of like a real world example. Because I feel like for kids to hear that are so used to working out and trying to get stronger and get faster and better at their sport, it's almost like strong enough. Like, I didn't know that was a thing,
Yeah.
So again, I think it's rare for especially a high school athlete to get to that point, but there are certain instances where, a kid can earn that strength over time. And it's like, yeah, man, like, not saying you should never squat, but yeah, your focus is that probably shouldn't be your highest priority, because it's like, what's the risk to reward of trying to get an athlete that weighs 200 pounds and squats 550 pounds? It's like, okay, like if we're trying to get them to a 575 squat, like what all do we have to do? Like,
Yeah.
we loaded up with a lot of weight. So it's like, what's the risk to reward to that? So I don't know. I think that's just an interesting concept. I think to kind of play off of that idea is like, how strong is strong enough? And it's like, what else were we going to talk about? There was something that played off of that. How strong was strong enough?
Or is there too much emphasis
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
strength training, or
yeah.
like getting stronger?
Yeah, just in general. And yeah, I guess you already kind of hit on that a little bit. Like, with younger athletes, it's like probably not, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're most of, especially when you first start lifting, right? Most of your progress is going to come from what?
Getting stronger.
Getting stronger. And how do you get stronger? Like, what's the main mechanism behind that, you think?
What do you mean?
Like, in terms of as you're lifting weights, like once your first 3 months of lifting weights,
Oh, gotcha.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
where are you improving the most? Is it how strong your muscles are? Is it like neurological? Is it like the changes that your body's going through? Like, I mean, what do you think?
I mean, everything would point to neurological
Yeah, it's gotta
adaptations.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But especially at these younger ages, especially boys, and like how testosterone is at that age, like the muscle growth that happens at that time, it's crazy.
Yeah.
One of the other coaches that we know, high school coach, was telling me, and you're probably in a similar situation where football players in particular take the lifting class
Yeah.
during the day, but then they lift. Football has their lift after school, and he was worried about overtraining. He was
Yeah.
worried about pushing it too much, and is everyone, they're going to get hurt, or we're going to have problems with overtraining. And he hasn't seen any of that.
Yeah.
He's like, everyone just got so much stronger compared to last year.
Yeah.
Like, because we're lifting twice a day for the most part now. And he's like, I'm like, yeah, look at their hormones.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be hard to overtrain a high school boy.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's something I've had conversations with other coaches about that too. Because we do the same thing, obviously, like we lift in class. And then I was talking to somebody at the pep rally last week. It might have been the same coach, but talking to him about it. And, he's like, if they lift in class, do they have to come to after school? And if they come after school, like, how hard is their training sessions? And it's like, at least for us, like our classes are, 45 minutes long. So it's like, and then I break this down a lot to people that, like other coaches. It's like, you got 5 minutes to change before and after. So 45 minutes goes to 35 minutes. You got a 10-minute, warm up with a like run through the lift, walk them through it, make sure we're all on the same page. So by the time we actually start training, it's like 25 minutes. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, you can get a solid workout in 25 minutes, but as a 14, 15, 16-year-old boy or girl, it's like, man, like you're going to be, the work that you're doing is not going to be super intense when you're just limited by the time that you have. So like our perspective is after school, we have a little bit longer. We'll, depending on the group, but we'll train from an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And so it's like, yeah, if someone's in class, like that does not substitute for the work that we're going to get in after school.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a big part of that is just like, at least here at Snyder, like training, like strength training for athletics is like, it's not just you're training to get better at your sport, but you're like, training as a team, what I mean? Like you're together with your teammates, like doing stuff together. And like, there's a lot of, I think, benefit to that. Outside of, I'm just going to go to, whatever gym after school and just train by myself. It's like a lot of the sports teams put an emphasis on like, we need to train as a team. And I think, the coaches recognize the benefit of doing that. So that's just kind of how we do it. Like if you're in class, like you're expected to be, like we lift 3 times after school for football. So it's like, if you're in class, like you're expected to be, unless you're obviously playing another sport, but like you're expected to be lift with us after school. And like you said, it's like, it's going to be hard to overtrain a high school athlete just in general, just because their body's going, like you said, their hormones and just everything going on with their body. Like they can handle a ton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They can handle a ton.
We were just talking about our friend yesterday working out for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And as you're talking about it, I'm thinking when we were in high school, because we had strength class, and then we lifted after school. I'm like, did they make any changes for us? And it was like, no, you're lifting in both.
Yeah. The only thing we'll change is like, depending on how the week sets up, the only thing we'll change, like our bench days in school or in class will fall in the same days usually that we bench after school for like off-season training for football. And so I really had like putting together the program for both of those. It's like you got 2 options just with how the week is set up. It's like you can either squat on a Monday night and then squat on a Tuesday morning in class, or you can double up your bench day on Tuesdays, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so without breaking down the whole week, that's basically the ultimatum that it comes to. And it's like, I would much rather us bench twice in one day than squat, at 3:30 p.m. heavy on a Monday and then come in on Tuesday at 8 a.m. and have to try to squat again. So in a situation like that, it's like, yeah, after school, it's like, we'll just put, uh, and a lot of them will choose to flat bench again, which
Hmm.
I'm okay with. But like, we'll give them an option, like if they want to do like a close grip or an incline,
Hmm.
or if
Hmm.
they just want to change the variation of it. It's like, yeah, I still would much rather do that than more or less double up on the squat, the
Yeah.
heavy squat days. You know
Is
what I
that
mean?
a pain for you, like programming wise,
Like lining it up.
or and trying to figure out like, okay, now we're adding in the after school lifts. Like, how is this gonna screw them up? Like,
Yeah.
does that bother you sometimes?
I wouldn't say it bothers me. I think it's just like, it forces me to make sure everything is organized properly. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So it almost like, each semester that we have, the lifts will be different, and a lot of the format is the same. But like, this is what, the fourth year that I've been at Snyder, so it's like, I know what we've done in the past, and I know what's worked and what hasn't,
Hmm.
because we try to keep our lifting days after school consistent year by year, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
like, we go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday right now, and for the 4 years I've been here, it's been that. And so I know, like, when I'm setting up the program for the spring, I know, like, okay, like, we're gonna Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, we're gonna lift after school. So like, going into making the program, um, I just have it set up like, you probably do the same. I just have, an outline of each week that I
Hmm.
want to hit. Like, these are the movements I want to hit. It's basically like, you look at the week based on what your overall goals are, and it's like, okay, I know I need to hit these, or I want to hit these 9 movements, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. And then it's, where can I fit these in the best that lines up the best with what we're doing in class.
Yeah.
So like, the first time I did it, it was definitely, I had to think a lot about it, and just make sure that I had everything like placed in the right spot. But once you have something that works pretty well, at least like outline wise, format wise,
Hmm.
I usually keep that pretty consistent, and then just change movements based on what I think we need and what we don't,
Yeah.
So it can be kind of challenging, just in the sense of like, again, just organizing 2 different programs and having kids live twice in one day.
Yeah.
But again, there's a way to do it, and I think just as long as you're organized and smart about it, and not just, really, if you program, like, if you truly make a program, like, that should be covered in that. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Now, if you're coming in every week and like creating workouts that week, like, yeah, you're gonna be,
Right now on the whiteboard.
yeah, you're obviously be a little bit more stressed out. But
Yeah.
to me, that's just like a challenge of programming, right?
Hmm.
Like, that's
Hmm.
just kind of how it plays out. So I don't know. That's good thoughts on just strength training, and how strong is strong enough. I agree with you. I think you mentioned it earlier. It's like, yeah, the older, or the higher an athlete's training age gets, probably the more possibility for them to be strong enough, if that
Hmm.
makes sense, for their sport. Comes into play. But yeah, for the first 4, 5, 6 years of training, depending on when you start, it's like, yeah, if you focus on getting stronger and moving athletically, like
Hmm.
sprinting and jumping, like, yeah, I think you're gonna be in pretty good shape. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so, to kind of play into that, we were also going to talk about just like thoughts on Olympic lifts. Like this is always fun to talk about.
Hmm.
Everybody has opinions on it, which is fine. And yeah, what are your thoughts on, how do you Olympic lift your athletes? What variations do you do? Are you tied to them or married to them, or do you have alternatives, or just kind of, what
Hmm.
are your thoughts with that topic?
Yeah. No, this is perfect because I think I said in the first episode, I teach at Indiana Tech, practicum strength conditioning. That's a class where we meet in a weight room,
Okay.
and I coach the students basically how to lift and how to become a coach.
Are
Like,
most of the students athletes?
yeah, it's Indiana Tech. Like
Okay.
70% of the student body, I
Are
think, is
athletes?
athletes. So
Yeah.
it's something crazy like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if I had uh, a very good Olympic lifter come teach on Friday, Micah,
Mm-hmm.
and
He's strong, man.
strong. Like, I mean, I forget, he's getting ready to compete in May,
Is he?
and I think the weight class is like at 81 kilos,
Okay.
and he can clean and jerk like 315.
Yeah.
And he's aiming for like 330.
Yeah.
So I switched kilos and pounds right there, but you know what I'm talking about. And 330 kilos, this dude's a
Yeah,
freak.
right.
But and he went over snatch, and because he's better at snatch than I am, I'm
Yeah.
like, please. And he's USAW certified. Like, he trains at an Olympic lifting gym in Ohio. Like, drives to Ohio. Anyway, so I had him come present, and it's fun watching him do the movements, like even PVC pipe to a bar to a loaded bar, all the way from the floor to a high hang, like every
Yeah.
variation, and how like fast and explosive and just clean it is, no pun intended on the clean, and seeing like the students' faces, like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and like just how fast the movement happens and the position he lands in. Anyway, he did a really good job of going in like very specific details, and I would kind of cue him like, why are you looking for this? Why are we coaching so much posture? Why are we coaching so much hip contact? Why are we coaching so much like lat engagement, like from the first pull, like, and then he could break it down, like he understands it.
Yeah.
He doesn't just read about it, like he reads about it, he gets coached on it himself, he performs it himself, he coaches others, like he knows it really well.
Yeah.
And so he could go in detail, and I stopped and like explained to the class, I'm like, this is how detailed it is.
Yeah.
Like they're doing movements. I think the heaviest one got up to was 65 pounds. And that's really just so when they're coming from the floor, it's not sitting on
Sure.
the floor. And they're just going through like a snatch pull, like from the floor, okay, like a shrug. And he's like telling the person like, oh, you have too much weight at this part of your foot versus this part, or your shoulders need to be directly over the bar, you're a little too far in front, that's why you're falling forward. Like little details.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is how much goes into Olympic lifting.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to tell the students, like, this is the level of detail that goes into this. It's an Olympic sport itself. I was like, don't get me wrong, you can still have athletes do it. I personally think there's still benefits to it, even if it's not like the perfect like contact point and catch and stop the, even if it's not exactly perfect, I think there's benefits to it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you want to do it really well, this is the level of detail that goes into it. So with all that being said, private sector, not guaranteed to have the athletes very long. I think I know our smallest membership is 6 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And if I'm getting a high school athlete for 6 weeks, we're not worried about cleans.
Yeah. No shot.
But as far as variations that you mentioned, a clean pull or like a RDL shrug. I'll even get into like a clean high pull. Some of our athletes who have been there for a while, or I know are going to be here for 2 years. Like, I don't mind doing cleans. I don't mind having them do snatches. I probably do snatches more than cleans.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's lighter. It's going to be a lighter load. You can't, and there maybe you disagree, and that'd be fine. I feel like it's harder to. You can catch a clean in a bad spot with your elbows down and like wiggle your way through it, like wide feet. We've seen this. I think with the snatch, like if you're not catching it in a good spot, you're not catching it.
Yeah.
Or it's got to be such a light load, 45, 65, 95 pounds, that you can kind of correct yourself.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking a handful of athletes
Sure.
that I do it with. But yeah, I think any of the pull or high pull variations I think are good. The only thing I would say one of the biggest benefits of Olympic lifts is actually catching and stopping the weight.
Yeah.
And with those, you don't really do it.
Yeah.
So, but I'm sure your perspective might be different in a team, longer term setting.
Yeah, I know PSM in general does a lot of snatches. Just like from what I've seen, just like content wise, like them putting it up.
Yeah, and again, it's really only a handful of athletes.
Really?
But I mean, if it looks good, yeah, post it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not. I'm thinking 10-ish athletes that
That
have it in their
snatch,
program.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah. The snatch is one of those things that, like, I think variations of Olympic lifts, whether it's the full variation or broken down, I think there are benefits to training those with athletes. Like, I've never, my 5 years of like being in a high school setting, I've never taught a snatch. Um, my thought is, especially with larger groups, right? Like, we'll have on average right now, our class size is like 42, I think. Um, so it's like my biggest thing with the snatch of especially not teaching it in larger groups is like we really don't know. We don't do any movement screens or anything. And like it's hard to know what's going on at the shoulder with, from athlete to athlete. One athlete might have really good overhead mobility and control, and another athlete, more often than not, is going to be uncomfortable overhead, which isn't a bad thing. But just with how complex the shoulder joint is, I just, again, in large settings, I just stay away from it, just because it's hard to figure out, who it'll be good for and who it won't.
Yeah.
So I think kind of opposite of your perspective, like we'll clean every week, and we'll just do a hang clean, right? And so catching in a full squat, come back up just from the hang. I think I've been thinking about it. I might adjust it a little bit. Next year we might pull from the floor. I haven't really decided if I'm gonna change that or not. But I don't know. With the hang clean, I think is a solid option. I think one, it's like you said, and I want to get back to Micah a little bit after this, but I think one, it's simple enough to learn, in the sense of at least the basics of it. With the hang clean, so I got a lot of athletes because they'll see athletes from other schools that are pulling it from the floor and doing more weight, and I want to pull it from the floor, yada yada yada, and it's like, my main thought with like cleaning from the floor is whenever you add like having to clear the knee from the floor to the knee,
Yeah.
it's like, this is how I explain it to athletes. Like the further the bar travels, the more things can go wrong, if that makes sense. There's more room for error. So to me, again, with larger classes, and teaching athletes that, before they get into this class, like have never cleaned before, 98% of them, it's like, yeah, I just try to keep it as simple as I can. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, just from the hang, to me, it's like, okay, we all know how to RDL, or at least we should. Like that's should be a staple movement. So it's like, okay, you add the RDL into it, go into a high pull. It's easy to put together a complex of just, we'll do an RDL to a high pull, and then RDL to a full clean. And it's like, that's the simplest that you can get. The first 2-3 weeks of an athlete doing it for their first time is like, I hate this. This doesn't feel good. Like, at the same time, we're learning our front rack because we do that complex at the beginning of the program. So it's like the more we work on the front rack position, the more we can kind of explain like the catch position and just like basic mechanics of the lift. Like, and we tell the athletes this, but each week, it should feel a little bit better. Like if you've never done it before and if it feels awkward, it's like, yeah, it should. You know what I mean? Like you can't step into a movement like that and expect to just pick it up right away.
Yeah.
But to kind of get back to, like you said, the teaching points or the coaching points that Micah was hitting on, I always thought of Olympic lifting like as very similar to golf.
Okay.
In the sense of like, I can't really speak for Steve, but like my golf swing sucks. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a golfer. I'm not very good at golf.
Mine isn't, but we were just at Top Golf.
Yeah.
Both of us were. No, you were more consistent than I was.
Yeah, I was getting a little better.
Yeah.
I was getting a little bit better, but it's one thing. It's I don't do it enough, to pick up the mechanics and kind of figure out my swing. But it's similar to a clean. Like I always think of it as when you go to, I've never seen golf in person, or at least like a big tournament, right? You go to a tournament and someone's getting ready to swing, it's dead quiet. Like people are just focused on what's going on. You go to Olympic lifting, like a weightlifting competition, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like someone's getting ready to clean, it's dead quiet. Someone's getting ready to snatch or whatever it is, it's dead quiet. And I just think like the similarities between, a small, I don't know shit
Yeah.
about a golf swing, but small little adjustment, I can imagine we could have a golf coach come in here in probably 30 minutes, like, really help us dial
Mm-hmm.
in, figure out
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing wrong with our golf swing. It's the same thing with an Olympic lift, right? It's like literally small little adjustments, like from, having the bar in one position to the bar being half an inch in a different position can completely change the
Yeah.
trajectory of the bar and like mess up your catch. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, that has always been fascinating to me. And it plays into, like, you look at the people that do it at the highest level. Like Micah's a great example. Like Micah, I don't know how much he weighs. Like you said, 80. He's competing at 80 kilograms,
Yeah.
so under 170.
Yeah.
Ish, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And he's when you look at him, he doesn't. He looks like a weightlifter. He doesn't look like a bodybuilder or a power lifter.
Yeah.
But then like do his lifts, and it's like, man, it's like it almost is like an art form. You
It
know what I mean? The
is.
people that do it at the highest level.
Same with like a golf swing.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
really is. So it's like you look at the people that do it at the highest level or compete, and like Lucas is there's a lot of coaches
Grant.
Grant, Keith has
Keith, yes, yes.
some really good Olympic lifts. I'm trying to think. I don't know if we're missing anybody that do, because there's a couple of guys that we work with that are like that's their thing, that's their
Yep.
sport, they compete
Yep.
in it, and all those guys that we named, like their technique is crisp and clean, and you look at all those guys, some of them are a little bit bigger than others, but again, to go back to Micah, it's like he's a perfect example of, you see him and you're like, man, like he's athletic, he doesn't, he's not super huge or anything, but then he cleans, clean and jerks probably twice his body weight, or at least close to it.
Yeah, close to it.
Maybe a little bit less. But like it's just crazy to look at the people that do it at the highest level, and the people that compete in the Olympics. Like you look at them, you're like, man, they look strong, they look fit, but you wouldn't expect them to be able to
Yeah.
move the weight that they do. And I think a lot of that is just because it's such a technical lift that it's like the people that compete with that. And that's why I try to tell this to athletes sometimes. Like if an athlete's like really beating themselves up, or they're getting frustrated with it, it's like to try to get them to understand, like the people that really do this literally spend years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like perfecting these movements. And it's never, I don't think you ever perfect it. You know what I mean? But like you said, it's fascinating to watch someone that is really good at Olympic lifts, to like break it down in the positioning of everything and all the technical aspects of it. So I guess to say all that, I think there is a place for Olympic lifts and strength conditioning, or training athletes. Like you said, I think one prereq to it is, like, as a coach, you have to be able to demonstrate whatever you're doing, right? So it's like, if you can't, like, I haven't snatched in a long time, like years. It's been years. And it's like, yeah, like if I were going to teach a snatch to a class or a team, like I would have to, for at least a month, like work on my snatch. You know what I mean? Just to like refresh everything. So I think that's the first thing. Like if you're a coach that's trying to figure out if you should include Olympic lifts in your program or not, it's like, well, first, like, be honest with yourself. Like, how does your technique look? And like, how well do you understand the movements? Because not that when you coach it, especially again to high school athletes, it's like, yeah, keep it as simple as possible. So you don't need to have all the small little specifics to coach that athlete, but I think it helps knowing those small little details in your coaching of the movement, just to make sure that it's just like anything else. The better you understand it, the more you're going to be able to coach it. So I don't know. I think there's a place for it for sure. I think it's just, as a coach, you have to be sufficient in the movement yourself, and to be able to like perform the movement or give an example, or be able to correct, hey, this is what you're doing, this is what I need you to do. And I think as long as you're able to do that, and you have a reason behind your your use of it, I think there's a use for it. But then again, I mean, there's plenty of coaches out there that never Olympic lift and have great success with their athletes.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different replacements for it.
Yeah, 100%.
There was even, this is different from Olympic lifting, but the presentation on Wednesday, a younger coach came up to me. I was like, oh, so I was like, you do, I don't know, you do this exercise, but you don't do any med ball throws? Or like, why don't you do any like landmine, like explosive landmine stuff? I was like, oh, all those are good options. I'm just already checking those boxes by doing different movements or different exercises.
Yeah.
It's like same with Olympic lifts.
Yeah.
Like if someone were to come up to me, you don't do Olympic lifts with the football guys? Like, we could, but we're doing other stuff that hit those things as
Yeah.
well. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways to get the job done.
Yeah. What are your when you look at that like the combine prep? It doesn't even have to be that, but like just in terms of alternatives or how you're training the same aspect as what Olympic lifts do. Like what are your alternatives, or what do you use to train those same components, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So I think from being explosive, like the actual output, the concentric output portion, a med ball throw would be good. A weighted jump would be good. A Olympic lifting variation where you're hitting that explosive triple extension position. I think all those are fine. Jumping, med ball throws, weighted jumps potentially in Olympic derivatives. For the catch portion, which I would probably argue is a bigger component of it. Like there's a weight in Olympic lifting, it might not be free falling, but it's at a standstill and you have to get underneath and stop it from dropping you even further. I think all that can be done with different sort of catches that we've talked about recently, or even just a depth drop, being on a box and sticking the landing. Like you have to hit a position and not let gravity crumple you to the ground.
Yeah.
And I like those.
Yeah.
Very easy to teach. Step off the box, stick the landing.
Yeah, which is super beneficial.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like there's you look, and this is a common way to look at it. It's like it's a tool in the toolbox, right? Like, what's your toolbox consist of? Like, there's so many different ways to train, and I think a big part of that is like first understanding what you're trying to train with whatever movement it is, right? Like, if you don't really understand why you're using like Olympic lifts, then it's hard to figure out alternatives for that movement, right? But it's like, it's the most common like reason for training Olympic lifts is like training your triple extension, right? Which again it's gotten to the point where it's like everybody talks about triple extension, and it is. I mean, you see it a lot in a ton of different athletic movements. So I think it's important to be able to be explosive in that movement. But again, there's so many different ways to do that. That's what I was gonna ask. Have you ever done any med ball throws like using force plates?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think, and even as I keep talking about the catch, I was like, man, I should clean on top of a force plate.
Yeah.
Because someone on one of the social medias, I posted something about depth drops, and I haven't seen anything in my own life that's produced a higher force output, even though it's an eccentric or like isometric position, than a depth drop from a certain height. And someone was like, "Oh,
you're not producing force." Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that, and someone's argument was catching a clean at like a 315-pound clean, which is a heavy weight.
Yeah.
It's like not any athlete can just do that.
Yeah.
I can't clean 315.
Yeah.
But anyway, catching a clean at 315 is more athletic than stepping off a box and sticking the landing, or would produce a higher output. And I'm like, it may be, but like I would argue if you can catch a clean 315 and stick it like a power catch, you could probably step off like a very high box, like a 5-foot box, and stick it. Anyway, but I should play around with that on force plates.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see just kind of like that's something that I've never really experimented with. I've never had access to force plates, so I'm a complete noob in that realm, at least using them and kind of comparing different movements. But I think that'd be interesting because that's the med ball throws is, I feel like, one of the most common common alternatives
Mm-hmm.
for Olympic lifts, just because again it's explosive and you're moving something fast. But I'd be interested to see kind of what the comparison of like force outputs between
Yeah,
and there's got to be, I'm sure there's research out there that
probably.
probably looks at that.
If not, it wouldn't be too hard to put together,
Yeah,
like
to
for me at work.
try it out and
Yeah.
see what it is. So yeah, that'd be interesting to see. But I think all in all, I think in general, I think again, if you're at least as a coach or an athlete, like, and if you're comfortable with the Olympic lifts and like it makes you feel strong, and if it makes you feel good and your technique is at least decent, it's like, yeah, like go ahead and knock them out, you know?
Yeah.
If you've never done them, like, and you don't have a coach to teach you, like, it's like, yeah, there's other alternatives that you said take a lot less time to dial in the technique that are going to give you at least similar benefits to, what um, a clean or a snatch is going to give you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? So I think again, it just really depends on where you're at. That was another aspect that because I think I want to say my first semester here, I didn't clean the athletes. I don't
Okay.
think we cleaned. I think we just did like trap bar, like triple extension shrugs. Um, and I'd have questions from coaches and athletes like why we didn't. So just explaining just basically
Mm-hmm.
everything we talked to. But one of the reasons why I decided to add them back in is like most high school athletes don't go on to play college sports, but there are obviously a handful of athletes that go on to play college sports at the next level. And like I was just thinking to myself, like as a coach, like if like because I'm trying to think of we have one, two, three, we have three kids going to a Division I school next year at least. I
Mm-hmm.
might be missing a couple. But then we also have a good amount that are going to either D2, NAI, or
Mm-hmm.
D3. And it's like, man, like if that pool of kids is 10, 15 kids, I know for a fact, at least for the three that are going uh, to a Division I school next year, at least two of them I've like read through their program that the schools gave them, and they're doing some type of clean
Mm-hmm.
variation. I haven't seen the third one, but I wouldn't be surprised. Hey, he's going for baseball, so they might, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't.
Yeah.
But anyways, the whole point being is like, okay, like if I spent 4 years with these kids and I never once cleaned them, or if they never properly learned how to clean, it's like, man, I think a big part, especially of playing at the next level, is showing up wherever you're at, like showing up with confidence, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And like having the confidence that you're well prepared, based on the things that you did in high school. So to me, it was like, man, it would suck as a coach um, to know that I didn't technically fully prepare them
Yeah.
to the best of my ability, for what they're going to see at the next level. So that was something that played into just my decision to. There were other things too, but that was a decent sized one. That's like, yeah, like I would hate for because all three of those kids are just confident in just naturally, you know what I mean. And it's like, man, I can only imagine them showing up to the school that they go to next year and like everybody's cleaning and technique
They're
looks
not ready.
good, and they're like, man, I've never done this, or I've only done it a handful of times, and just I feel like that would be especially in a new setting, like that's gonna affect your confidence a little
Yeah.
bit and
Yeah.
just be a negative experience. So I think, as a coach, again, 95+% of athletes are not going to play at the next level.
Yep.
That might be high. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Very low percentage of people are going to play at the next level. But it's like, man, like we got to do what we can to prepare them for what they're going to see.
Mm-hmm.
And for the kids that don't go play at the next level, it's like, man, it could be something that sparks an interest in them in strength conditioning, because there are a lot of kids that, especially the ones that struggle with it first
Mm-hmm.
and then obviously stick with it and like figure it
Yep.
out and like start to actually get a lot better. Because that's, I mean, the biggest thing, just like anything else, I feel like is repetition. You get your
Yeah.
reps in, and you're going to get better at your technique if you're doing that focused work
Yep.
each week. But even for the kids that don't play at the next level, it's like, yeah, it might give them, hey, I really like the hang clean, like I might, do that after I get out of class, or it just might give them some type of positive influence to continue to be active and lift weights. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that pretty much covers it in terms of Olympic lifts.
One thing, I was thinking of it when you were talking about you're not yet and might not in the future pull from the floor.
Yeah,
Do you remember how we used to do it in high school?
vaguely.
I remember we'd like deadlift it up,
Oh, I do remember this. Yes.
tap the floor, then
Yes,
catch it, then
yes.
clean it.
I remember people used to smack it off the
Yes.
floor and bounce it.
Yes.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what the thought process was there.
Me neither.
I don't know. I don't really get that because you already use, especially you got heavy weight on there. Like you got to use some energy to pick it up.
Yep.
And then it's like the only positive to that is, like you said, you get a bounce off the floor, but it's like that's not what we want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not necessarily a good thing. I remember people used to.
Bro, I remember like
Yes.
right here.
Yes.
I remember right
Where they
here.
would bounce it and get all the way up to their knees,
Yes.
and like, I completely forgot about that.
I did too until you were talking about it.
Yeah.
And you bringing up, like, man, that's wasted energy having to deadlift, relatively heavy
Yeah.
weight at whatever strength level you're at.
Yeah.
There's a guy 1 year older than us. I remember my position group, and he's like, man, my hang clean is heavier. I can do a higher weight on my hang clean than I can from the floor.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that makes sense.
I think I remember that. JW?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
That's crazy.
I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yep.
Because that was interesting because most athletes are going to be able to clean more pulling it from the floor than from the hang.
Typically, yeah.
Typically, you know what I mean? But yeah, if you take the bounce away off the floor, then it's like that's an interesting kind of topic, right? Like, why would somebody's hang clean be higher than a full clean or clean from the floor? You know what I mean? And again, I think it goes back to some of it could go back to, well, having to clear the knee, like, can throw things off. You know what I mean? But then it also, if someone is just more explosive in nature or twitchy in nature and doesn't have really good technique off the floor, it's like, yeah, that would make sense. You just get a twitch and a go. You know what I mean? Yeah, that was crazy. I don't really know. I'm not sure what we were doing there.
Me
but
neither. Me neither.
There's a lot of things that we do differently than what we did back in the day, back in the good old day. But
Good times. Good times.
yeah, it was good. It was good. It was just like anything else. It's like riding a bike. The clean is learning that technique. That's one nice thing about it is, like, you learn that technique and it's like, yeah, if you don't do it for a while, you're gonna have to refresh on it. But
You'll be rusty.
yeah, a lot of it is just like muscle memory. You get it down and kind of knock it out. You know what I mean? So I think that pretty much covers it, man.
I think that does it.
Yeah, I think we'll cut it there. We'll be back next week.
Yep.
We got to try to figure out. We'll talk about this off camera, but yeah, we got to try to figure out. We're gonna try to get some more different types of content, kind of putting out there. So we got some stuff we're working on, but gonna be as consistent as we can with this. And yeah, each week we'll have just a couple topics that we think fit together well, and that we'll talk about, and just kind of go from there. Anything else?
I'm good.
Y'all good? All right. We will see y'all next week. Peace. Oh, shit, man.
My ass was killing towards the end. I was like,
Yeah, man. Those seats are not